Mark, good morning.
Good morning, Devansh. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, thanks. Good.
Awesome. And can you hear me properly? Can you see me properly?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today. I know it's
Oh,
early morning there.
yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much. We just wait for a couple of more minutes so that more and more people can join us.
Sure.
And then, yes. And until then, I would like to tell our viewers that today the topic of discussion is the art of personal training, the business of personal training. That is the most important aspect of, I think, any business. So Mark is an expert in that, and he's also authored the book, The Business of Personal Training, and that's the reason he's here to discuss about that and a few strategies for you to improve your fitness business or any personal training business. I also have invited a few physical therapists who I feel our fields sort of coincide or like sort of overlap. So I think they'll benefit too from this talk. And hello, Sumit, Dave, awesome. So first of all, thank you so much everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Mark, for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you. I've been following your posts and I saw that your book got released recently. It's not yet available in India, but I look forward to buying it soon. I know that you have been in the fitness industry for the past 40 years, and
That's
that's a long time.
I'm
Yes,
old.
that's you don't look old at all. You're
Yeah.
still young. And it's a long time to commit to an industry, and that's the reason we are here to listen to you. I know you played various roles in the fitness industry, and you also. So I was going through your book, and you have given wonderful descriptions as to what aspect is into what field. So working in the gym as compared to working as a personal trainer, freelancer, or being self-employed. And you are the owner of Jiva Fitness in Eastern
Yes.
Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Awesome, yeah. So could you please tell us something briefly about yourself and your success journey until now?
Sure. I have been at this. I've been both a health club manager and a personal trainer for 40 years, and that is a long time for anybody, because back when I first started off, it really wasn't considered much of a profession, which is why they sort of went hand in hand. You're managing and doing some personal training, but as a personal trainer in itself, that was not a career. So there weren't, you had to sort of figure the whole thing out as you went. And people will ask, well, who were my mentors back then? And they're going, well, there really wasn't anybody else. There were very few people.
Right.
So it really was try to feel it out. But the love of the industry, the love of the capability of being able to change people's lives has kept me interested in the whole field. But also I've been also teaching trainers, because again, it was a new profession. And I was in on the beginning, ages of it. And, I probably had more experience than most. So that I wanted to also share that information with personal trainers. And I've been training personal trainers almost as long, probably for 38 of those years.
Wow,
and as far as the rest of my career, everything in general, and this is every profession you mentioned, does it pertain to other professions? And business, of course, does, but also do I sit back and do my job, or do I always look to get better, learn more, and continue to grow? And the big thing for me was always I never know enough. I have to keep learning. I have even 40 years later, I attend conferences every year. I read as much as I can. So you never stop learning. And as I learn, I try to share that information too. And that's really my whole career right there.
Wow, I completely agree with you when it comes to the learning part, because our industry is so dynamic that every day a different research comes up, and what you learned just a few years ago might be a little different now. So you just need to keep yourself updated with.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, the information changes, on a daily basis. So if you
Right.
sit back on your laurels, I had one trainer who worked for me that was I've been training for 20 years, but he hadn't actually read anything or learned anything in those 20 years. So there were people who, have been training for 1 or 2 years and had much better view of the current science than,
Right.
so it's not how long you do it. It's that constant upgrade, that constant learning that keeps you on top of your game.
Right. I agree with that. And I know that you have a lot of certifications attached to your name. So what's up with that? I mean, how did you attain so many certifications?
Yeah, what is up with that? Honestly, I was in a position where I was working for a large health club chain as a curriculums coordinator. So I wrote the in-house curriculum for personal trainers, for their education. And I also wanted to be in a position to recommend certifications. Which certifications should you have? Which ones are the good ones? Which are the ones that you shouldn't bother with? And so in that whole process, I took a lot of certification exams, and to figure out which ones are worthwhile, which ones are not. But also, the certifications are also a way of learning. The United States Weightlifting Association was a great way for me to learn the Olympic weightlifting skills. So that I can then pass those on. So there are specialty certifications where I just wanted that knowledge.
Right.
I do some, I have through the years, I have trained some athletes, but that's not my focus. So how much did I really need to, be certified as a weightlifting coach? Not so much, but it was mostly just my self-knowledge and just making, trying to make sure I understood everything. And the certification is just a benchmark, So, I mean, the interesting thing about certifications is that trainers think that, that'll impress your clients, and they have no idea what any of them mean. So it's more to impress your colleagues, than it is to, impress the layperson. Layperson doesn't care as long as they know, like, and trust you, and you get them results. They don't care so much.
Right. Oh, I completely agree with that. And this brings me to another question. What actually got you interested in fitness and personal training? What was your journey to get into that?
Well, actually, in college, I started out as a chemistry major, and I was very disenchanted with the collegiate program. So I went to what was my next favorite. I was a high school and college athlete, and so that whole idea of athletics and training. Back in those days, they didn't have an exercise science program. So my degree is actually in physical education / kinesiology. But I never wanted to actually teach physical education. In the United States, certainly, I don't know what it's like in India, but in the United States, it has never been, and again, I've been doing this for 40 years. In all those 40 years, it has never been respected as a real curriculum item. They would cut it out, at first, our funding is being cut. We cut out the arts, we cut out physical education, So that is not a fight I wanted to have for 40 years. So I wanted to go to the private sector, and what got me into it, I was working at an exercise physiology laboratory at the university, and I was teaching cardiac rehab classes. And I was working with one woman in particular, and I like to think her name was Mary, but it's 40 years and I don't know. But I started working with her. She was just post heart attack, and so we were walking around, with a group of people. We were just walking around the gym doing some stretching movements, and that was kind of the extent of the whole thing. 6 months later, she approaches me and says, I was thinking about getting an exercise bike for my home. Does that sound like a good idea? And this is a 73-year-old woman, again, post-MI. And I was like, yes, cool. She's come all this way. She wants an exercise bike on her own. She's taken initiative. That was super. About another 6 months into it, she pulls me aside and goes, you know, I never learned how to swim, you know, when I was a youth. You know, what do you think about taking swimming lessons? And, you know, you just sit there and just go, oh my, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And honestly, that was the point where you realize how much you can change people's lives at any age. And so I was sold on that, and have always worked, you know, at health clubs, you know, and as a personal trainer. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Awesome, awesome. That's so. I think fitness is a field where you really need to be motivated from within, and only then you can change people's lives. You can't just enter just to make money. It's just not like that.
Right. Yeah, and that tells you who's gonna, if it's gonna be a career or it's a job to them.
Right.
You know, if you're in it for the money, it's a job. You're not. You know, as Simon Sinek says, I don't know if you have the book, but start with why. And the idea of what is your why? Well, if you're here to help people, you know, then you have that internal that self-motivation, and you have the desire to continue to work at this, and you recognize how much you can help people, and that's what really feeds you. You know, or if I'd known the business end of things too, I might have made more money in the industry. But back then it was nothing but, you know, give them everything you got, you know, and it wasn't, that's what it was about, you know, helping people. It still is about helping people, but now we find ways of making money too.
Yes. So what you asked me about India, yes, is the same in India. So India is a little behind when it comes to exercise science as compared to the US.
Yeah.
So just recently in Mumbai, after so many years, just 4 years ago, a university started offering a full-time bachelor's course in exercise science.
Great.
That's one of the three or four universities in India that's doing that.
Yeah.
So it's still improving here, but I think it'll get there. But again, how you said before, the funding for that department, I think it's one of the least given. So
sure.
Yeah. And so do you think every personal trainer needs to have a niche or a target client, or can they train anyone and everyone?
They really do need to have a niche. And it is, you know, maybe you know, I've discussed this a lot with different people, and you know, they'll debate, you know, but you can train in, you know, it's like my certifications in all these different areas. I could train anybody, you know, for the most part. But if I say I can train anybody, I'm exactly like everybody else there who says I can train everybody. And in saying that, I become this part of the sea of trainers who do everything. If you choose a niche, like what my wife and I do at our studio, is we are specialists at post-rehabilitation and working with people who have physical issues, and people the other population of people who are intimidated to start a program.
Okay.
You know, so while I can train high-end athletes, that's not my niche. You know, I can point to other people who do that better than I do, even though I could do it. But I don't advertise that. You know, what we market is our ability to help people who are having difficulty getting started and or difficulty moving. You know, having physical issues. So that's who we market to. And now, if having chosen that niche, and somebody's, you know, just trying to think about starting, is very intimidated or has some physical issues, they're not looking at the sea of I can do everything. They're looking at, oh, this person has what I need. Right. So we will stand out as that to that market, you know, as opposed to being just again in that sea of I can do everything. Then you're just you know, then it becomes about price. You know, whoever's cheapest, I'll go with that because they all do the same thing. But if you're a specialist, you know, not only do you stand out, but then getting into the business aspect, you can typically charge more because, you know, just like you're a specialist in the medical field, you know, if you go to somebody who this is all they do, you typically, you know, you'll get better results, but you'll also expect to pay a little bit more.
True. I agree with that. And I think that answers the next question that I had, but I'll still ask it. Uh, how do you think can personal trainers or fitness professionals get more clientele and make more money and charge according to their expectations and capabilities?
Well, and this gets into the business end of things. I mean, yes, certainly having a niche, but then you have to let the people in your target market know that you exist. So
Right.
here comes your marketing. You have to let them know that you exist, and you have to engage with them. A lot of people will run ads, and it's all about, okay, sign up for this, I got this going, you sign up for this, and people get spammed with that. And the first thing you have to do in getting more clients is create relationships with those clients. So you have to, personally, of course, we're in the middle of lockdown with COVID-19.
Yes.
And probably, for us in Easton, Pennsylvania, we have another month and a half, 2 months before we are able to open again. My first go-to when I talk about marketing is to get out in public and go to all the networking events, go to any place you will meet your target market. If my target market was youth athletes, maybe I joined the booster club of the high school, fitness athletics program. Get to know the parents. Offer help. Offer if they ask, offer advice. The idea is to give to them till they come to know, like, and trust you, because people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. So before you sit there and hit them up with, buy this, buy that, they have to get to know you and you them and know what their issues are. So my first go-to is as you're marketing is go, if you're able to go to groups now, get out into the community and, get to know your target market. If you're, like during our lockdown, okay, well, we get into social media. And you still have to do the same thing. You can't just run ads. You have to approach groups, join groups that serve your target market. If you have a, if you want to work let's just say post rehab. I wanted to, if I want to get into that, I want to start to look at what physical therapists I know. Get into, discussions with them, doctors, whatever I can. I want to start to engage the people who refer, as well as if I, your general population you can approach them and go, is anybody having issues here? And I'm just wondering what you're doing. Asking questions of people who are maybe challenged or, I just recently asked, we've been locked down for a month and a half. And, I was just asking the general population who's got figured out what they're doing, and how many of you are just sitting back and, just sort of waiting to restart when the whole thing's over. And got into some good discussions with people about, what they're doing. And it was an opportunity to praise them, the people who are doing well, to ask questions of others. And, the people who are really came out and said, I really need help. Well, then I can directly message them and talk about possible solutions. But it really was a chance for people to air what they were feeling doing. And so you look for those opportunities to connect first before you market. The original question is how do we get more clients and charge what we want to charge?
Yes.
I'm going to jump into the charge what you want to get. That's a huge psychological barrier for many. And it's mostly, a lot of personal trainers have trouble charging what they think they are worth. Well, actually, that's not true. They have a tough time charging what they should be charging. Right. And oftentimes it's because they don't understand the value of their service. Right. They will look at it like, it's, I remember when I was starting off, I was training personal trainers from scratch. These are the people who worked at the health club as front desk or something like that. And this literally is maybe 35 years ago. And so I trained them, and then they, the business wasn't organized, so people would just go out on the training floor and charge what they wanted to charge. It wasn't run. It was like independent contractors. They just, it wasn't managed in that way by the club. And I realized that people I was charging I was training from scratch were charging more than I was and getting it. And you have to sit back and kind of go, what's that about? How come I'm not getting the top dollar? Well, I was basing that on my perception of, well, getting fit is not that hard. It's because I've never not been, I mean, I started, besides just playing, in fourth grade, I started organized sports and played sports all my life. So, that getting in shape, well, it's just working out, it's just doing this. And that just, was in the back of my head. And as soon as, that is our perception of it, not their perception of it. Other people don't have that kind of background and don't understand. And this is such a valuable service that sometimes we don't get it. We think that if we charge, back then it was ridiculously low, but if, even if we are charging, I know people who charge up to $300 a session. And, I would ask them, like, well, how do you believe that that's worth it? And and the answer really is just going, I changed their lives. And how much is it worth to have your life back and to be able to do the things you never imagined you'd still be able to do? I'll talk to people who are hitting their 40s and they're just going, I'd be happy if I could just climb these stairs without getting winded. Well, how long are you going to live? And what kind of quality of life is the next 40, 50 years going to be? So if you give them that, what is it worth to have 40, 50 years of being physically capable and able to do what you want to do, more than just, walk up the stairs without being winded? They don't even realize the potential of that, but the value is huge. So if they want to charge $300, super. I mean, but the average is somewhere between 35 and 100, depending on the trainer, depending on all that. But it becomes, what can you charge? Well, what do you believe you are worth? What is this service worth to them? Not to you, to them.
Okay.
And you have to you look at that. Of course, demographics plays into it too. If you're particularly working with disenfranchised and people who really need this but can't afford anything, well, then your prices will vary, or you'll regroup. And this is, so if I have people who can't afford more than $10 a session, well, I can't make a living on $10 a session. And so maybe there are other ways of handling that. Maybe that's the small group training where I can get 5, 10 people together. And then it becomes more worthwhile for me to do from a financial standpoint. And also from that emotional, I am serving and I am doing and I'm giving them something wonderful. So your pricing really, there's a lot of variability in that, but you have to make a living and you have to realize the value of it. I think I'd probably talk that to death, but.
No, that was perfect. And actually, that was another question that I had that you talked about. What do you think is better, personal training or engaging in small group training or like large group training? What is more monetizing?
Well, which is more profitable?
Yes.
Well, the idea of it depends on how you handle it too. There are a lot of clubs that, when you do group fitness becomes part of your membership. And so that becomes how much value is perceived for that class by the members. Well, it's part of the membership, so it doesn't have as much monetary value to it. And the people who teach those group fitness classes typically don't get they're not big money for that hour or whatever they're teaching it. If you're in a studio or you're in a place where you're charging per class, or for that's a separate product. This depends on who's running the show. Some clubs, most clubs will pay you a set fee for the instructor to teach that large group fitness class. I taught when I was managing was a fitness director for a club just before we opened our own place. I would teach a boot camp that had anywhere from 60 to 80 people in it.
Wow.
And I still made very little doing it. I enjoyed doing it a lot, which is why I did it. And it was good for the program, of which, I was in charge of the programming of the whole thing. But had I been not working for the club, and if I even charged $1 per person, I'm making $60 to $80 for the hour, which is not bad. But so it has the potential, large group fitness has the potential to make money if it's a sort of a per head charge that you can do. I know people who run boot camps, and it may be anywhere from $5 to $15 per class, but they are their own business. So if they have 50 people, that's a lot of money. So it has the potential of being very good, and it's a lot more money typically for your hour that you're spending doing that, versus the personal training. And small group, the same kind of idea. Small group, you would pay more because you get more personal attention than the large group. And so people pay more, but you don't have as many people, but you can still, that multiple of how many people do you have. And, if your small groups go up to 10 people, and if you have 10 people who are paying $25, a session, well, okay, $250 for that hour or whatever time that is, that's good money. And it's rare that the person who's doing just one-on-one personal training will make that $250 per hour. And again, we're somewhere between 35 and 100, as an average. I think actually the average in the United States is, I think it was 55 last I looked, for a personal training session. And then personal training, as I said, you'll make any range in there. The clients will pay more for that because that's the most personal attention. It's the most personal programming. You're right there with them the whole time. So your eyes are on them, and that kind of attention should get more. For one person, they should be paying more. But again, I know clubs, studios who have moved completely away from the one-on-one into the group thing because it's more profitable. And it can be, but like my wife and I mean, we're specializing in people with challenges. That's it's less appropriate to have larger groups of that, because you just can't give them the attention they need. They need really hands-on, looking at right there with them the whole time. So you make your choices about which kinds of group you go with. The larger the group, the greater the potential, certainly, if it's a per head paying kind of scenario. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it makes even more sense for a place like Mumbai, because we have the population of Mumbai is about 30 million. Yeah. So it's a huge city, a lot of people. Of course, there is like a difference in the poor and the middle class and the rich class, but then if a person wants to go into group fitness, then I think they can make a lot of money if they have a lot of people in their class, and it's possible.
Right.
It's not tough to find people. Yeah. So that makes sense. And so there are a lot of professionals who have the correct knowledge and have the expertise within, but when it comes to conveying it to their clients, they fail really bad. And that's why the client goes to another person who is not as knowledgeable, but can maybe talk better or explain things better. So how can this be taken care of?
It's great that you bring that up, because one of my earlier experiences managing acting as a fitness director was that I came into this club that already had trainers, and one of their trainers had a bachelor's degree in exercise science, had a master's degree in exercise science, had 2 major certifications, so highly qualified, highly knowledgeable, could not get a client for himself. And yeah, so part of it is that perception of people don't want to be seen. I mean, it boils down to that we're here to help people. And a lot of trainers feel like we can't charge large, loud, big money because, it's about helping. It's not about us making money. And because of that, they don't know how to sell that. They don't know how to sell personal training. They don't know how to sell themselves. And, he actually ended up leaving the field because he just couldn't bring himself to do it. And it was partly my fault because it was prior to me getting a real handle on the business end of things. So it was probably somewhere between 15 and 20 years ago. But it stands out in my mind because that was a perfect example of somebody who knew his stuff, could do this, could train the people, get results, all that stuff. If he only had the ability to get clients, and of course, if you can't get the clients, you can't make it happen.
Yeah.
So there's a perception or a paradigm shift that trainers need to wrap their minds around, and it really is that we're not selling them to, this is kind of why we're doing it. We're not selling them to take their money. We're selling to them to change their lives. We are the best opportunity for them to live a healthier life.
Right.
We are the key for them. We have that ability to change their lives for the better. And that's a service that, first off, that people are willing to pay. But, we are giving them the opportunity to make that change. So, one of the things that I will talk to trainers about is the sales process is simply asking if they're interested in a program that, let me back up a little bit. When you always go through an initial consultation, you go through a medical health history, you get to know the challenges of this individual. And you come up with a plan. When you learn all that information, you come up with a plan and you make a recommendation. My best recommendation for you is, maybe it is that we get together 3 times a week and we work on these things. And, you said you get bored easily, and we'll make sure that we change the program frequently enough to keep you interested. And whatever those challenges are, you give them the solution to it. And then at the end of the whole thing is, how does that sound to you? Does that sound like something you're interested in? Mm-hmm. If they're interested in, then the monetary exchange is just, something at the end of the whole thing. Are they interested in what you can offer them? Mm-hmm. And I always use that as a phrase, go make a recommendation, mm-hmm. and essentially ask if that is interesting to them. That's the sales process. And you're not trying to sell them something that they don't need or want. You're trying to give them what they're looking. So, if I were selling them something that, if somebody, it's like when I was doing a consultation with somebody who really had their stuff down, knew what they were doing, said, great, rock on. If I can be any help, let me know. I didn't even try to sell them because they had their stuff. They knew what they were doing. That sounds like a great program. It sounds like you're really doing a really good job. They've been seeing results. Super. I'll check back with you in a couple of weeks and just see how you're integrating here at this club. And if I find they're failing, then we go on and make a recommendation. But don't try to sell people who don't need it. That way, there's no. I'm not doing something underhanded. I'm not slipping something by them just to make money. Mm-hmm. I am giving them exactly what they need and want, and I make that proposal to them. That's the difference between having the skills, having all the skills and the inability to get clients, is really your ability to explain the program that you're proposing to them, and then just simply asking them if that, is that something you'd like to be part of?
Right. Oh, that's an awesome information. Yeah. That's, so I can totally relate to this because post my graduation, before I graduated with a master's in kinesiology, I was in Ohio. So I applied for a lot of jobs. and few jobs were personal training as well. So the first thing that on the phone that the interviewer asked me is that, are you used to marketing? Are you used to sales? And then I was like, no, I've never done it before. He's like, not even once. I was like, no. And then I didn't get that job because of that.
Yeah. Well, at least they're asking that question now, because, in the old days, nobody even thought about marketing, like that. And personal trainers never had that skill. Now there are a lot of conferences. I just got through a conference this last weekend that was really the business of studios, and this one was particularly, how are we going to handle, reopening after COVID-19. It has a lot of different things, but it entails marketing and everything else. So the idea of understanding business is now better accepted than it used to be. I remember when I was curriculums coordinator for this organization and wrote the in-house program for them. And at one point, the manager of the program, came to me and said, I want you to integrate a sales chapter portion of, for this certification we were doing. And I was just like, oh God, I hate sales. I don't want to, And that's because I had a really bad sales training experience at one of my first, one of the first clubs I worked at in Boston. And they had it was back in the hard sell. They were really trying to sell. They were all about the money and not about the person. They were trying to sell memberships and have people not come so that they could just keep selling memberships and they'd never be too crowded because they just keep selling, which is completely anti what I believed in. So I had this horrible sales is awful thing. But this manager said to me that, I don't know why you're, that this upsets you so much. You're the biggest salesperson I know. And it was when I started to realize that sales is not about getting money. Sales is about your enthusiasm and belief in changing people's lives. And that enthusiasm, that ability is what will carry trainers through. But now, also understanding the business aspect and how that all works is very important. The marketing aspect, understanding your venues and that you can market in. So I certainly recommend any fitness business. Actually, I wrote the book, The Business of Personal Training, after having also read probably 100 different books on business in general.
Right.
So it's not just fitness business. It's business. It's marketing in general. Looking at those things and then just translating that into how does that work in the fitness field. So when I say learn about that, it's not just learning. Because there aren't that many fitness business books out there. So it's not just that. It's go to the regular business books and look for the ones that people who do online marketing, do all that kind of marketing in general, I guess, all that stuff, and just go to them because they're the specialists in every field, and then we just managed to work that into ours and see how that will play out in ours.
True. And this brings us to how to acquire clients. But how about once you acquire the client and you're working with them and you're happy with them and you want to retain them for a long time, like maybe forever? Because I know I've seen a lot of trainers. I've been through that sometimes. I start off with a client and then, because of some issues or because their motivation going down or because they become busy, they stop training. And, it's a huge cycle to get back into and searching for another client and then starting all over again. So the relationship breaks, the whole momentum breaks. So what can we do for that?
Well, there are a couple things that come up when you ask that question. One of them is you never stop marketing, you never stop looking for another client. And it's always better to have a waiting list than, there is a natural ebb and flow to the whole thing. People, I've had, companies where I've trained, 4 executives in a company. And then the company changed headquarters and I lost 4 clients in one fell swoop, which 4 clients, maybe 2 or 3 times a week, that's a lot of sessions in a week, all of a sudden, poof, gone. And if you're not continually looking for that next client, you don't have any backup. You don't have, somebody where to go. So you never stop that. But retaining your clients, other than that, a huge part of that is that we need to not just be the dictators of the program. Okay, we got them. Here's their program. I'm just going to push them. Just keep, doing my thing with them. Well, you have to involve them in the program. It's actually interesting because my latest search in learning has been what they call motivational interviewing. And motivational interviewing is really getting them to initiate what they're ready to do and how, what's the next step. So I'm not dictating this to them. I'm involving them in the conversation, and we can do a collaborative, okay, here's the direction we're going. But trainers don't typically do enough of that. We're very much, you want to get from point A to point B, this is the plan, and we'll stick with this forever. Well, that may or may not work. You constantly have to be talking to your client. Usually after 2 weeks of working with a client, I'll stop and say, well, how is this going for you? I'll say, I see gains being made. I see changes being made. You're getting stronger here. This is looking better. But how does this feel to you? Does this feel like we're on track with what you're trying to accomplish? So continually keep them in the loop. Ask them, is this what you want? And I've had clients say, I love all this, but I really hate this exercise. Can we please find something else? Well, so they were kind of dreading this one thing. And if I ask and they tell me that this is the case and I swap that out, they're going to feel so much better, stick with me much longer. I listen to them. I care about what they feel. It's not just me ramming this program down their throat. So having them continually in the conversation is a way to continue to have your clients. I've had clients 12 years, and actually the one I had for 12 years only stopped working with me because I moved. But you have clients, you can have clients for a long time. I know I have a trainer friend who I know that he's worked with some people for decades, literally 20 plus years. But you can't just run that same play. You have to keep them involved, keep them engaged. What's next? How do you feel about this? Let's go for a challenge. What do you think would be good, next step for you? What would make sense for you? What would make you excited?
Okay.
So I guess, for retaining your clients is ultimately keep them involved in the whole conversation, keep them involved in the loop, let them help guide, parts of this. Ultimately we decide whether it's going to do anything for them or not, and if it's appropriate or not. But more often than not, they have a good idea of what they should be doing. So let them help make those choices, and they'll have greater buy-in and greater longevity as a client.
That's true. There's this one thing that I have noticed about personal trainers in Mumbai. Some of them are really strict with their approach with their clients. Yeah. And they just push them so much, and when the client sort of questions them, they just kind of shut them up. They're like, I know everything, you don't know anything, just follow my plan and you'll be fine. And then it results into just breaking the relation, and then the client at the end gets angry and just leaves them, and then they're just confused as to what happened. And then
one thing that one of the motivational interviewing books that I was reading, there was a great sort of quote on it, or concept, which is you know far more about fitness and exercise science than the client does. But they are the experts on them. True. You don't know them. You don't know, and quite frankly, there's a lot of, it's described as even their own self-knowledge is like an iceberg. They're only aware of the top end of their own feelings and biases and what they're, what motivates them. So that there's even a whole lot that they don't know about themselves, but they sure know a lot more about themselves than we do. So they are the experts on them. We are the experts on exercise, and it's how we integrate those two things. And that's that being able to take leads from the clients.
True, true. Very, very nice advice. I mean, I think a lot of trainers need to implement this in their training. And, there needs to be a constant relation with the client, constant looking back and
Yeah.
feedback, and lot of questioning like that. And so we're going through this pandemic, and a lot of trainers have stopped training their regular clients because they just can't talk to them regarding virtual training, or they can't convince them. So you have any ideas or suggestions as to how we can convince our clients to train online?
There will always be people who won't want to do it online. That's just, that's just not their thing. Don't want to do it. But, to have the conversation with your clients about what they've accomplished to date. And I've always been of the mindset that it's okay that you don't want to work with me. If you don't want to come do the virtual thing, that's fine. But you need to not lose what you've got. So let's at least go through a program and create a program that you can stick to. And I can just check in with you once in a while, see how you're doing, just to keep them going. So, with that idea of explaining to them, the clients, you've gained so much, and it is a reversible thing. You will start to lose, what's going on. Again, that post I made just recently going, are you going to sit back and wait till the whole thing's over, or are you going to do something? Some people going, it won't take long, it'll be over, and going, well, no, it's not over, and may not be over for a long time. So what's the plan? And if that plan is I'm going to get some workouts in at home by myself, super. Again, not selling something that they don't need. If they got a plan and they're, or they're just going to, I have the equipment at home, I'm just going to do the same program we've been working on. Fine. Doesn't need to be virtual training. But for most people, they're going to, they still need that appointment. They still need that motivation, to be there with somebody. And then the second part of this is, besides the fact of making them aware that, you shouldn't be losing what you've got so far. You've done so well. It's also that some people are intimidated by the technology of it all, and don't know if you're Zoom. I don't know what platform India uses as much, but right now the U.S. is using Zoom as a conferencing platform. And anyway, so to create a tutorial for them about how to use Zoom and walk them through. One of the things I was just recommending at the conference was that you give a setup session. This is a session, no charge. What we'll do is we'll go through, we'll see the equipment, work with the equipment you have. You can explain that to me, and I will walk you through how to do the whole Zoom thing, but I'll also talk to you about your space, how much space you need. We'll make an exercise program that fits your space. What equipment do you have? We'll create a program with the equipment you have. If you don't want to buy equipment, that's fine. We'll be using laundry jugs as weights, or gallons of something, So we can always find something to do, or it's body weight, or it's, something else. But having that setup session makes them feel more comfortable. It's not a charge. And that means that there's a lower barrier to try it. After that whole setup session, if they feel comfortable, they'll probably go, okay, I think I'm ready for this. Without that, then there's the anxiety of, I don't know if what's going to happen when I get on, and I just, I don't know how this whole thing works. And, a lot of them will just go, no, I can't deal with it. It's funny. I just had somebody say that I can't deal with the whole technology thing. And go, look, I'll walk you through it. No problem. But that there is anxiety with that, and that's just one more blockade of getting them to train online. So discussing the importance of not stopping, one way or the other, whether you're training with me or not, and even if they couch it that way, is good. You're going, it doesn't matter that you're training with me. I want to make sure you're doing what you need to do to maintain or even get better. And then going through and making it as easy as possible for them to do the online stuff, creating that tutorial, or having that setup session where you can go, okay, I get it. Not going to be so bad. I can do this. And a lot of our clients, have come back and said, it's really this it's just like the same thing. You know, you can't touch me, you know, from the distance, but, you know, and part of that is we need to get better verbal cueing since we can't touch them, you know, and get better, you know, with all that. But you know, I was recommending, of course, to charge the same amount because it's the same service, different venue. Mm-hmm. So our training rates are the same rates as our in-person rates, or on, you know, virtual versus in, because it's the same service. But, you know, you do need to make them feel comfortable on the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And so those are the two big things, is really the importance of and the comfort with the technology.
Awesome. That's really good advice, because I'm sure a lot of trainers today who are watching will apply it and maybe convince their clients, or at least walk them through the process.
Yeah.
So, sorry, Mark, the conversation is going really well, but I've lost track of time. So has it been like 45 minutes or?
It was 52 minutes.
52. Okay, it's gonna cut us off in 8 minutes. It's only 1 hour limit. So my question is grooming important for personal trainers? Do they need to be good, or, you know, like have a good haircut, or maybe just dress up?
I had not had the opportunity to have my good haircut lately, so that, you know, a little less of that. Yeah. So, but in general, yes. You know, everything you do is a reflection on your brand. Now, it really depends on what that brand is, what you're trying to get across, what your clientele would consider professional. Now, I've seen people wear bandanas, wear, t-shirts, raggy t-shirts, or tank tops and whatever. If their clientele is the clientele that goes for that, fine. You know, you can do that. My personal belief in that is that you want to look as professional as possible. I'm growing my COVID beard here, but even in doing that, I've shaved up here, and I've shaved down below, because I don't want to, I'm making a concerted effort. This is something I'm growing. It's not something that just overtook me. So, keep it neat and clean. I believe in uniforms. I believe that, we should look the part, and that doesn't mean you have to be thin and muscular. It means you need to be an active person. You need to, live in healthful ways. You can't, if you're doing Facebook food shots, and it's of, grease meals, this big, and washing it down with a keg of beer, and that is not setting yourself up to look like you walk the walk. So I think you need to look like you walk the walk in all that. I do believe, yes, I think you need to look professional to the market that you're serving.
Okay.
Again, that may be a different look for a different market. If you're serving market, I have friends who work with a lot of rock bands. They train celebrities and do that, and for them to have face tattoos and a billion piercings, and wear the bandana or a hat backwards or whatever that might be, works with their clientele. So it has to fit your market. I guess that's probably what I'm going to end at.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I see a lot of trainers here who are not as professionally dressed, and they themselves do not work out regularly, and they are sleep deprived because of overworking. And, at the end, I mean, their clients are like, why am I even listening to this person? Because he himself doesn't walk the talk. So I think that's a good piece of advice. So, yeah. So those were all the questions I had for you. And thank you so much for being here, sharing your knowledge.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, have you addressed any Indian population before, or is this the first time?
First time, yeah.
So before
go ahead.
Sorry. Oh, no, that's fine. Please go ahead.
I just wanted to say, thank you for letting me speak to this population. It's great to be able to speak to people in a different country.
We need good educators like you who have actually done their research and have been in the industry for a long time, and now you're here advising us. And where can we find your book?
Well, it was published through Human Kinetics,
Okay.
and I don't know. They do have different addresses. Like it's I think it's Human Kinetics. .us for the US, and I don't know whether they have a different address, but it's Human Kinetics Publishing.
Okay.
They were the publishers, but honestly, it's also on Amazon.
Okay. On Amazon India, it's not yet released. I just checked, I think, day before yesterday. But I think soon it'll be out. So I'm looking forward to that book, and I'll be buying it, and I'll send you a picture of it as well.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
For sure. And thank you so much, and stay safe during this time. And I hope to talk to you soon and have you soon again to address us again.
Thank you, Devansh. My pleasure.
Yes, and thank you all for tuning in. We have our next speaker on Saturday, which is Dr. Bill Campbell. He'll be talking about nutrition and fat loss.
And he's worth listening to. He's a great speaker.
Yes. I've been following his research, and it's just really great. So
yeah.
I'm looking for that as well. So thank you so much, Mark, and you have a good day.
You too. Stay safe.
Yes, bye.
Bye.